Welcome to Passport Mommy. I'm your host, Michelle Jerson. This show is for anyone raising little humans. We feature experts with tips and advice to enrich the lives of our children. Mom and dad entrepreneurs tell us their inspiring stories. Learn about products that could make both you and your child's life easier and more fun. And of course, fellow parents discuss and laugh about what's happening in their child's world. Motherhood is a journey. Thanks for joining me on mine. Welcome to the show. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. And if you have had cabin fever, you have been wanting to travel. I know I have, but one thing is for sure is that most of us have not been getting on airplanes lately. And in fact, a recent survey, 44% of Americans say they are taking more road trips due to COVID-19. And 43% of those surveyed say they've replaced one or more of their canceled plans with a road trip of some kind. And this summer, the average American has been on 2 road trips and plans another 2 road trips in the future, which is really exciting because I feel like there is so many great things to see in our own backyard that we a lot of times just look past because we want to get on that airplane and we want to go somewhere exotic. We want to go to a tropical island or to another country, but there really is so much to do here. So I am thrilled to have with me today Lonnie Unser. She is a 21-year-old female race car driver, the newest member of the Unser Auto Racing Dynasty. Lonnie, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here talking about tire safety.
Thank you. So yes, I'm thrilled to talk about tire safety because I feel like it's one of those things that we don't think about, right? Especially if we have young kids, we make sure that their car seats are installed okay. We make sure we have everything for the car, all the snacks and everything for the road trip, and we make sure we have enough gas. But there's certain things that maybe we're not checking, like do our tires have enough air and some other safety measures. So you, out of all people, would know the importance of tire safety and safety in general when it comes to getting into a car. So I know this week is National Tire Safety Week. So why do you think that this matters? Why should people pay attention to this?
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, it's actually one of the number one most overlooked pieces of equipment in your vehicle. And actually, your tires are the 4 things connecting you to the road. So it's really important, especially now that people are traveling more. And it's cool that people are getting out for road trips, but checking these 3 things is really important. And it's going to help you be a safer driver out on the road. And those 3 things are, first, like you said, tire pressure. Second is your tread depth. And third is the overall condition of your tires. And it will help you, checking these 3 things will help you with things like stopping distance, it'll help you not skid or hydroplane. So it's really important when we're going out for long road trips or just even traveling locally to make sure your tires are in top condition so you and your family can be as safe as possible.
Right, exactly. And so we were talking a little bit about COVID-19 and how it's affected road trip travel trends. What have you been finding?
Yeah, so like you said, a study done by Cooper Tires showed that 44% of Americans are more likely to take road trips. And over half of those said they're at least going to take 2 more. And even if you're getting out more locally, driving to the store more or whatever it is, checking these things is really important. And they're really fast and easy to do, these 3 checks.
Right, exactly. And I know I was driving my husband's car the other day and I got in and the need air signal came on. I said, why do you leave me with this? And it's little things to just keep up with. And like you said, especially just going to the store. And if you are taking your kids out, I know for myself, especially at the beginning of this pandemic, I was just thrilled to get out to drive to nowhere. And so it is, I feel like our car is our second home now, and we do want to take good care of it. So what are your top safety tips to help keep drivers safe? I know we talked about those 3 things that we should look for. Are there any other tips?
Yeah, so in addition to those three things, it's important to prolong the use of your tires. And so trying to avoid stopping fast or starting fast or hitting curbs or potholes is really important to prolong the wear of your tires. And actually, I'm really glad you mentioned the warning that came up on your car, because a lot of people rely on that. And while that system is awesome, it actually kind of lets you know when your tires are much too low. And so that's why we recommend doing these safety checks every month, is because you want to be proactive, not reactive, right? So just always making sure they're in good condition can prevent things, again, like tire failure. It can actually also save you money at the gas pump. By having properly inflated tires, it can enhance your gas mileage.
Right. That's a good point. And we all want to enhance our gas mileage as much as we can. We need to save money whenever we can.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So you're a young race car driver and you like speed, obviously, but you do it in a very safe manner. What tips and advice can you give to other young adults before they hit the road?
Being a race car driver, every time we get on track, before every time we get on track and before every time we get off track, we check our tires. And then that just goes to show that how important it is for young adults and everybody to be checking these things. It's so important. And it's a habit that I've been fortunate enough to build from a young age. And, it's still never too late, but starting to build these habits is really going to help you out on the road.
Right. Good advice. All right. So we've covered all of the safety tips and everything we should be aware of when we head on the roadway. I want to hear more about your background because I think it's so impressive. So tell me a little bit, for those who aren't familiar, what have you done with your amazing career so far? What's next?
I started racing about 4 years ago, and it's absolutely been amazing. Like you said, I'm part of a family who's been doing this for generations. I'm the fourth generation, and it's an honor to be racing, honestly. And I would like to make it to the top ranks of sports car racing. And making those steps to get there is kind of where I'm at right now.
Incredible. So what are you hoping to achieve? Let's just say, everybody has their 5-year plan. What's your 1 to 5 year plan?
Yeah, so again, just stepping up the ladder, there's different series that I can go into that will help me make it to the top ranks. And I've actually brought you to one of my favorite tracks, which is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And this is where my family is famous for, is the Indy 500. They've won here 9 times, I think it is. So I would love to race here one day in the Indianapolis 500 if I got the opportunity to.
Yeah, incredible. And a beautiful track. So, all right, we have a few more minutes left. Do you have any tips I know we talked about tips for young adults getting in the car. So if I'm piling my kids in the car and decide to take a road trip over the next few weeks, do you have any tips for maybe just how to keep the kids occupied so that we can focus on the safety of driving our car to wherever we're going?
Yeah, just being as focused as you can be in the seat is really important. Always being able to react to anything is happening is really key. And then also, kind of going off topic here, there's 2 things I always like to carry in my car. And first, that's a tire pressure gauge. And again, that's to do those monthly tire pressure checks. And it's really, really easy to do. And a lot of people don't do it. And so I keep this tire pressure gauge in my car. And again, I check it once a month, and then I also keep a penny in my car, and that's to check the tread depth. And to do that, I put the penny into one of the grooves of the tires, and if Lincoln's head is covered, your tread depth is good to go. If his head is completely showing, that's a really good indication that it's time to change your tires. And again, doing these things is going to help you be reactive if you get in a bad situation, and it's just going to help keep you and your kids safe.
Right, exactly. And then as long as if we could focus on being safe, then we can focus on keeping our kids sane in the car and keeping ourselves sane in the car. I always say bring lots of snacks for them, right? There's no such thing as too many snacks. Bring things to occupy them, little games or stuffed animals, or my kids are 3 and 1. So I make sure that they have their blankies with them, whatever the case. So definitely great advice there. Where can people go, Lonnie, for more information on Cooper Tires, as well as car safety, and to just check out more about you?
Simply just go to coopertire.com, and that'll give you all the information of what we just talked about today and more. And it's just a great resource to have in your back pocket.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Lonnie Unser. I really appreciate you being here with me today. It was so much fun talking with you. Best of luck and continued success in your career.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. So not only are people starting to head back to school, some children are staying at home and homeschooling, depending on their comfort level, some distant learning, some going back. But the workforce, a lot of employees are heading back into work. And for that, I have with me today Dr. Rhonda Meadows. She is with Ion Health Solutions. And I wanted to talk to you, Dr. Meadows, about entering the workforce after this time, because we're still technically in the middle of COVID-19. So tell me a little bit about Ion Health Solutions, what you do with them, and then let's get into this.
Well, Ion Health Solution is our population health company, and we've come up with an end-to-end service called COVID Ready. Our whole focus is figuring out how to make it really safe and healthy for the employer and all the employees when they're re-engaging and coming back to the workplace.
Okay, great. So why is up-to-the-date testing for COVID-19 and antibody testing essential to re-entering the workforce? Because I have heard a lot of people that their companies are mandating that they get tested before they go back.
It's really important for the employees to get tested to find out if they actually already have COVID, if they are actively infected, and if they can possibly expose others. So we encourage in the beginning that once an employer subscribes to the service, that the employee go online, find out where the local testing site is, get tested, and find out either way. One of the tests is for active infection, and the other one is the antibody test for immunity. And both of these types of tests are evolving, getting better, getting more specific, and that's great. But in addition to the testing, we also ask the questions about checking your daily temperature, doing things like looking for symptoms, and then assessing the person's personal health for risk for more severe illness. The testing is really important. If you are positive and you have active infection, we want to get you treated. We want to get you informed.
Exactly. And so how often should an employee test? Because if they test before they go back, but then let's say they're around, I mean, people are not staying home anymore. They're out, they're about. How often should we get retested?
Actually, it's not a matter of a regular scheduled test. It's a matter of actually being informed and checking on yourself. Mm-hmm. So through the service, what we do is not only get you tested that first time, but we also recognize that if your test is negative, that's wonderful for that day and that day only.
Right.
So what we do is we use an app through either a PDA, a phone, or a wearable, and we check your body temperature each morning before you even go to work.
Wow.
Get your body temperature checked, and we check you for symptoms. Are you getting a cough? Do you have a fever? Do you feel ill? That kind of thing. So before you even go to the workplace, you get screened. If any of those things are positive, then we get you connected with another test, and then we get you connected with health professionals who can help you through the whole process. Checking the body temperature and checking for symptoms every day through that little app at home makes a world of difference.
Yeah, that's incredible. So how can employees and employers use this type of service? How can we tell our employer that, hey, you should have this for us?
Well, I think you can be our best advocate by introducing them to Ion COVID Ready service. The employer can go online and actually subscribe for the service. And then they give us a list of the employees. The employees can then go online and register. When they do, it's their private account. And what happens is they get directed to a local testing site near them. They get the test done. Then they can check their results for themselves online. When they do, if it's positive, again, we connect them with healthcare, health services, and solutions so they know what to do. And if it's negative, we then start that whole thing about checking your body temperature, checking for symptoms, and knowing their own personal risk. If you are a slightly older or mature person like me, and you have diabetes or hypertension or heart disease, we want to basically help you with additional support. Maybe nurses by telephone, maybe a doctor through telehealth, to make sure that you stay as healthy as possible.
Great. I love it. And so beyond testing for the virus, what are some key elements an employer should have in place before reopening their workplace?
For the employer, it really depends on what kind of business they're running. If they're running something where their work site is a big manufacturing floor or a warehouse, they may be able to do the social distancing, keeping people 6 to 10 feet apart, providing places for hand washing, sanitizing, and maybe providing some extra masks in case people lose or break theirs. If it's a smaller space, like a hair salon or a restaurant or something along those lines, then it gets a little bit trickier. They have to figure out a way to not only keep their employees safe coming in and out, but also any clients coming in. So they may have to figure out, reducing size and capacity for people coming in on a regular basis. The next thing is focusing on their employees. You have to kind of get an idea of what your employee health status is. You have a bunch of really young people who are really healthy and less likely to get the more severe illness, or do you have a kind of a mixture, including the more mature people that we were talking about? If
Right.
that's the case, does everybody need to come back? Or can you do shifts? Or can you do work from home? Can you do something different? We can
Right.
help with that. We can help with that
Exactly.
strategy.
Okay, great. So where can people go for more information?
We have a website. It's www.ayin, that's spelled AYIN.com. Again, that's www.ayin.com. In addition, they can get additional information from their health professionals and regular doctors as well.
Terrific. Dr. Rhonda Meadows, thank you so much with Ayin Health Solutions. Really informative. And I think it's great to know that there is something out there like this, COVID Ready, so that it maybe can alleviate some people's fears about going back into the workforce, knowing that, hey, if we all got on board with this, we could all preventatively stay healthy and keep each other healthy. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for including me. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. More coming up in a few. I know that if you're like me, I'm just uneasy. I'm not sure whether to send my kids to daycare, let alone all these wonderful parents who are deciding whether to send their kids, or you've probably decided already, whether to send them back to school full-time, whether your school district is having full-time learning, if they're having a hybrid, if you're doing your own pod. And it could be a lot of anxiety involved with that for both you and your child. So I'm thrilled to have back with me today Dr. Ryan Loss. He is a licensed clinical psychologist. He received his PhD in clinical psychology from Texas A&M University. He is currently with Connecticut Behavioral Health. He has been with them for quite a while, quite a staple there, and really does wonderful things for the people that he works with. He goes into different school districts. So Dr. Loss, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. So tell me, what have you been experiencing from both parents and children as far as the anxieties and the feelings and the different emotions just going back to school is causing?
Yeah, it really varies across a lot of the age ranges. So you've got the elementary students. My elementary student clients have been pretty open and pretty comfortable overall with kind of the return plans. I mean, as much as it's been somewhat up in the air across different districts, I find that my elementary school clients, they're pretty cool. They're good. They're feeling okay. Some of them will have a little bit more anxiety than others. Middle school is when I'm finding that anxiety is tending to creep up a bit. The intensity of the academics perceptually becomes higher, and thus their anxiety comes up. And then some of my high school clients are really concerned about what it is that they're going to be experiencing. They're huge social animals in high school. And so that drop off on top of some of them being really high achievers and trying to deal with AP coursework and other type of high intensity academic coursework is creating a lot of anxiety on their end. And then you hit the parent end of things. That's a big, challenge, because those parents of the younger students have a really challenging time if they are going hybrid, because as much as their jobs were impacted at the start of COVID, then they were kind of confined to home with the stay-at-home orders. Now you've got an opportunity to go back to work that you at least think is going to be there, but you have to make some additional shifts in terms of what days I can work from home or need to work from home or need to find care. There's a lot to manage, and a lot of school districts didn't finalize their plans, understandably so, because the requirements for the state were changing here in Connecticut. So they had to work quickly, and it's been a challenge. And I'm hearing a lot of stress from a lot of parents across the board.
Yeah. And I think it's important, as stressed as we are, to try to keep it at bay as much as we can, to keep it from our children, because I feel like they will react off of our stress. And that's not easy to do.
It's not, regardless of the size of your home, whether you live in a large home or a small home, they hear things. They're sneaky. They find those different ways to get their ear into whatever it is you're talking about. So it does become a challenge, because they also are going to have questions and they're going to want answers. So you want to try and give them as much honesty about what's going on, what the schedule is going to look like. But it is okay to admit, listen, we don't have a concrete plan yet, and that's okay.
Right.
Here's what we're going to be doing as best as we can in the interim. We're going to figure it out. You're not going to be left without anybody to take care of you. We're doing something every day to try and figure it all out. The high school parents have a little bit more comfort, if not a lot more comfort, because those kids are at age where they can be home by themselves and parents can be out and about. But you're going to have families that are a mix of different things. I was just meeting with some directors of special ed, and one has a daughter who's in the higher 8th grade, so she can be at home and for the 2 days a week and manage pretty well. Family lives a couple houses away, so she's okay with that. But her son's younger and he's going to need more support being at home. So she's going to have to work with some of those family friends to check on him more so, to make sure that he is engaging in that way. It's a challenge.
Yeah, it really is. And especially, like you said, some parents are going back to work, they're going back to the workplace, but yet the children are staying at home, or they have this hybrid, or, how does one decide what's best for their family if they're kind of in this, if they're still at this point deciding what should I do?
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question. How does one decide? Because each family is somewhat different in terms of the different variables that they have to take into consideration with work schedules, other life commitments, the kids' schedules too, because sometimes school might change, but extracurriculars stay the same. Mm-hmm. But then it's trying to figure out that in addition to this hybrid-based model. I think if a parent has consistent care available to them, I think they could probably afford to, in terms of their anxiety and structure, what will be left, send their kid to a school, with the potential that schools might at some point in time close down because there is an uptick in cases. So they might have a greater sense of comfort. For those families that don't have that, like have to work and have to be have two parents working at a time, mm-hmm. they're going to have to really invest in trying to figure out what's next. If in 2-3 months schools do close down, what are we going to do then? Is that going to necessarily result in the closure of a business as well? They don't know. So it becomes a challenge overall. We as a family just have made some choices based on kind of what we anticipate, but also our availability of childcare. Those two worked in combination, and we were thankful to have some friends who investigated a learning pod and were able to coordinate that. It made our job easier, and we're thankful for that. But it was still a tough decision to make between 5-day a week, full day of school, and pod-based learning.
Right. And so is that what it is, the pod-based? It's 5 days, full day?
So our pod is a little bit different. Everybody's pod is different. I have some psychologist friends. They started their own individual pod for those two kids. They found somebody, they started weeks ago. They said, you know what? I want to get my kid as ahead of the game as possible and into as much of a routine as possible. So they're just keeping their kids home with a college student who's coming by and leading them through whatever curriculum that they did. They got an account on education.com, which can provide some good educational curriculum for different grades. Our pod is a 5-hour-a-day pod. It will stay in line with what the school is offering, but it does end a little bit earlier than that. So, and we were fortunate to secure a certified teacher who's not working right now, for a district. So that we were really fortunate and lucky. I mean, I couldn't be any more calm about the process given how it worked out.
And you of all people, you give advice to everybody else about how to stay calm during, situations like this. It's not easy. Now, real quickly, just to shift as far as, businesses and parents are concerned, I still feel that people, unfortunately, are being let go from their jobs and because of COVID and budget cuts. So how do you recommend managing that? Because there's a parent who they might say, well, we can't necessarily afford the care and different things to take care of our kids and to do the pod, but I need the time to look for work.
It's tough. It's a big juggle. I would love to give a perfect answer, and unfortunately there isn't a perfect answer. So when you're trying to make that juggle work, if you look at it and say, well, schools are opening, so that's great, and at least we have that comfort of built-in childcare, and I can spend as much time as I can. My district's a 5-day in-person. Many other districts rotate. You're in for school 2 days, you're out of school 2 days, 3 days typically, because 2 days you're out, but then everybody's out the third day. Mm-hmm. So it's trying to find that balance. I was home with my son since schools closed in March. So I had really these past, 5 to 6 months of truly working from home. So how do I entertain him? I give him as much structure as I possibly can. But at the same point in time, once school technically ended, it was summertime. So it's a very hard balance. And I feel for parents who are juggling that, because there is no good answer. If you can send them and you're as comfortable as you possibly can get, because I don't think any parent is truly overarchingly comfortable with that.
Right.
You find the ways to just kind of reassure yourselves that, my kid wears a mask, and hopefully I've gotten my child to be comfortable enough with a mask that the school's going to do the best that they can. And fingers crossed, other people will do what they need to do.
Right.
That will try and maintain a certain level of containment, if you will, for this stuff. But it's a challenge. It's the hardest thing to answer.
I know. I saw a post on one of the mom's boards the other day where somebody was posting that they were really irate that parents were calling the schools and complaining when they saw that there was a parent or a child not wearing a mask, either in their own car or getting out of their car or going to the school. And at first, when I read this, I thought, well, I could see their concern because they want to make sure that everybody's taking the same precautions. But then I was shocked about the number of comments of people who said, yeah, just relax, let people do what they're going to do in their own cars or getting out of the car. Don't bother administration over stuff like this. So I kind of see both ends, but I also see the high anxiety where this is stemming from. And, how do we control that and our own emotions when we aren't comfortable with what other people are doing, yet we're sending our kids to that same school?
Acceptance is probably the best piece that we can try and come to. And acceptance obviously is not agreement. It's not liking. It's just the understanding that all I can control is really, truly, as silly as it sounds, all I can control is what I can control. So I can have as much control over my kid wearing a mask and us socially distancing and not being in big crowds. That's what I can control. I can't control what some other parent is doing, saying, what their family as a whole is doing. And I can't control truly what the school ends up doing overall. The schools have made seemingly as many accommodations and modifications as they possibly can. Great. We have to entrust in them as much as we possibly can. And that's hard, understandably, but truly the control piece comes to, and control will mitigate some anxiety to say, I'm doing what I can.
Yeah.
As best as I can. And complaining doesn't sadly fix things. I think everybody could complain about their district in some way, shape, or form, even the really good ones. Mm-hmm. I've been in schools now and across elementary, middle, and high school, and I've seen compliance with masks. I've seen spacing with desks. That's just my one experience, and it's been good. It's been as positive as it can be for me, not having been in school since March. So.
That's great.
Happy to see it. Hopefully it can continue and maintain itself.
Right. Exactly. I hope so. And it's comforting to see. I've seen some teachers post pictures of their classrooms on Facebook, and I think, wow, that's really impressive. And it's impressive that all these districts and teachers have been able to just accommodate through this time. I think it's incredible. And I know, speaking with my friends who are teachers, they are just as full of anxiety about this school year as the parents and as the children are.
Very much so. I have family members who are teachers, and it's a challenge going back, and I recognize that. I certainly do. I recognize the challenge of school districts. I work in school districts. We support a lot of different school districts and families, across those school districts. And, they're working. Yes, there are teachers who are not comfortable going back, and so they're taking leave. And those school districts are working hard to try and fill as many positions as possible. Mm-hmm. But at the same point in time, they're working within an overarching community across the board of people that don't want to go into school. So you have that tough battle of teachers that don't want to, as much as people would like to have work. So people who are out of work, could they find jobs as subs? They probably could if they have a bachelor's degree, but they're also hesitant to go back into that environment, and understandably so. So it's a challenge on all ends, and schools are they're working hard. I see them. I talk to them daily. I know I'm personally friends with a lot of these mm-hmm. district directors, and I know how stressed they are to try and meet every need that, whether it be a special ed student or all students have.
Right. Exactly. So we have about 2 minutes left. What are some final tips that you can leave with everybody, with parents, with students, with teachers, for navigating this new school year?
For parents, I would say, do the best you can to prepare your kids for what they're going to experience. They're going to experience masks, hopefully throughout the summer. That's been something that you've worked into their mindset and their behavioral functioning of masks are going to be worn, and I know it's going to be tough. You'll get breaks. Do the best you can. So just getting that preparation into them. On the parent flip side, it's a matter of understanding and, again, accepting, this is what I've done for my kiddo. This is the best that I can do. I'm going to infuse in them that belief set that you just do what you need to do. You be safe. You follow directions, and hopefully, things will work out as best as they can for everybody, and school will continue. Those are all, I'll say those two key points: acceptance and preparation. Right. If you have little ones, get them Velcro shoes. Even if you have kids that don't know how to tie shoes, get them Velcro shoes, because they're going to struggle if their shoe comes untied. Some teachers might be hesitant to do it. I know it may sound a little weird. No. One of those kind of little points that you say, all right, mask wearing is key, but those other things, if your kid is young and doesn't know how to tie their shoes, Velcro shoes, as much as you might think it's delaying a skill set, it's going to be so helpful, because you won't have a kid that doesn't have untied shoes. Right.
Right. And they all have other accidents to deal with, tripping over themselves. Dr. Ryan Laws, thank you so much. Clinical psychologist for Connecticut Behavioral Health. I really appreciate you being here again with me today, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Best of luck to you and your family for this new school year.
Thank you. Same to you as well.
Thanks so much. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. More coming up in a few. So happy to have with me today Dr. Ann Riley. She is a pediatric oncologist at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And, I have a 3 and a 1-year-old. And one thing, whenever I hear about a child with childhood cancer, it just breaks my heart. And I just feel so badly. And I pray that my kids have good health. But you never know. You never know what can happen to your children, to a good friend's child. But I'm happy to say that the rate of survival is increasing, and we're doing so much better. And that's thanks to doctors like Dr. Ann Riley. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me today.
Tell me a little bit about the difference about treating a child with cancer versus treating an adult.
I mean, there are a few differences. Children get different kinds of cancer than adults in many cases, and they experience cancer a little bit differently than adults do. When you think about treating a child, you're treating them at a very early age, and then they have the whole rest of their life, hopefully, to live. And the effects of the therapy that we use may have effects over their whole life. So you're thinking not just about the present, but about the future, which makes it different. And then, children have unique needs. It's important that they be treated in a children's hospital, because a lot of the psychosocial needs and the growth and development needs of children are just very different than those with adults.
Right. And I know my brother works as a child life specialist, and he works in the GI department in a children's hospital. And that type of work, like you said, the support that they can get from a psychological standpoint, I think is huge when combating cancer and just trying to work on your own mindset, especially as a child.
Absolutely. And if you think the job of childhood is to grow and play and develop and learn. And so as we're treating children for cancer, we don't want that to stop. So we have, a lot of people working very hard, psychologists and social workers and teachers and child life specialists like your brother, helping the children to manage all of those normal tasks while they're getting the cancer treatment.
Right. And so tell me, how has pediatric cancer treatment changed over this last decade?
It's really getting much more specific and much more tailored and targeted. So, there's been a lot of work on genes. People can now get their genes done, their genetic testing. And a lot of the work in genetic testing and molecular biology has allowed us to recognize what makes different cancers different and has allowed us to create targeted therapies that really target people's individual cancers. So, for example, we now have immunotherapy where you can actually target cells from a child's own immune system, teach them to target the child's own leukemia. Well, that's very different, something we couldn't do 10 years ago.
Along with developments come challenges. What are some of the challenges that you've seen in developing the new cancer treatments?
It's a lot of work and it takes a lot of effort, and honestly, it takes a lot of funding. So right now, only about 4% of cancer funding goes to pediatric cancer research, only 4%. So funding is how we get the research done, and research is really how we move these new therapies forward.
So what can we do? How can we support families going through the treatment process, and maybe what can we do on our end?
I think if you know a family whose child has cancer, the psychosocial and friendly support is huge because all of those families are distressed and anxious. And then I would say for people who don't have a personal connection, you can always help with the research funding because donating to pediatric cancer research really makes a huge difference in the way that we're able to create these therapies for children.
And so how do you support families going through the treatment process at the Children's Hospital?
We have a large group of psychosocial workers, teams, the kinds of people that we've talked about that really work to help the kids get through. And then we're constantly doing research to try and make sure that we pick the best therapy that is the least harmful to the child. And, those are really the principles by which we treat our patients here.
Terrific. I know if, God forbid, something were to happen to one of my children, I would feel so happy to bring them to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia because I know you do incredible work. So where do you see treatment going in the future, and how do we get there?
We're trying to create treatments that are even more targeted and have even fewer side effects. I'm hoping that in the future, we have treatments that are minimally invasive to children, cause little distress, work quickly, and I'm really hopeful that someday our research will take us to curing all of the children and not, right now we cure about 85% of the kids with cancer. I would really like that to be 100% in my lifetime. So I think that's where our research is heading.
Where can we go if we do want to make a donation and help with the funding?
CHOP.edu/cancer. This is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and we're having our Parkway Run. We can't have it in person, but we're having a virtual Parkway Run this year. People can donate, and they can run miles to help us get donations, so that would be really helpful. It's CHOP.edu/cancer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ann Riley, the Medical Director of the Division of Oncology at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy, and don't forget, if you're listening to this podcast, we would love if you leave a review. If you've enjoyed this interview, please comment about how wonderful Dr. Ann Riley was to hear. Don't forget, you can follow us on social at Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson. Enjoy the rest of your day.